And it's really a great honor, to chair or be on a session with Mr. Raghavendra Avradkar. It's a great honor because a fantastic officer of very high caliber, which the government of India has seen, and it's really an honor for me to introduce him as well. And thanks you for introducing me. Sri Raghavendra Avradkar was born on January 24th, 1960, in a very remote village called as Chitgupa in the Bidar district. Very backward stay, very backward place. But he is the first IAS officer from that particular district. And he joined IAS way back in 1987 as ASP, and then went on to hold very senior position in the government of Karnataka. That's the Director General of Police, DGP, and also he was the Managing Director of Karnataka State Police Housing and Infrastructure Corporation. He was the Chairman, Managing Director of that as well. And as a very professional officer, he has held very great positions. To mention of, which I will be during my conversation with him, he has a very interesting experience of sharing on emotional, on intelligence, on spirituality, and so many other areas, because he comes in between the bureaucracy, the legislature, and the parliamentary as well. So he comes in all the three dimensions. So it's very difficult to work with all the three dimensions, and still getting a very good name. And also, living up to the expectations. One of the extremely well-known ethical officers in India. Ethical officer in India who is very much well known. And to mention a very few, very few, it's something, it's today Sunday, being Sunday means Aditya Divas. It's something like introducing a son exactly at 12 noon. It is something introducing Mr. Avradkar on such a note, because he's such a highly acclaimed gentleman. See, he was specially chosen to detect on to take to a formal end the very famous Telgi case. It's a 100 crore, 100 crore. It's almost a crore plus 100 crore plus stamp papers scam, which was specially chosen by Mr. Sri Kumar, the then DG IGP, to head this to be number 2 in the Stampede case. And he exactly did a fantastic job, and out of which the government appreciated a lot as well. And apart from that, he was also streamlining a lot of regulatory with reference to the Nasik note printing press, the Indian security press as well. And one of the very significant achievement of Dr. Mr. Raghavendra Avradkar is when he was the ADGP, Additional Director General of Police for Recruitment and Training. I'll tell you, my dear friends, this should go into the annals of history, which no HR person has done so far. And I am one of my wish is that this should become a Harvard Business School case study. He has recruited more than 40,000 policemen, 40,000 policemen from the inspector level to the DYSP level within a span of just 3 years, and having conducted online tests without a single question that is being leaked for more than 2 lakh candidates, across Karnataka, and recruiting 40,000 people and providing them training. That shows the government of Karnataka has become very strong with the police. Apart from that, he started a new syllabus for the training manual of the police personnel, and started various training schools across Karnataka, to train the policemen. And he was awarded the president's. In fact, believe it or not, Mr. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, wanted to know what is the thing is really adapting for the recruitment of such large number of policemen. So that was one of the greatest achievements. The rural background and from the foreign, and it's a dream come true for them to become a policeman. So both he has given opportunities to those people, and he was specially chosen by the then Chief Election Commissioner of Karnataka to become the police commissioner of Bangalore. During the very crucial elections time of government of Karnataka, when it was going to a very tough time, he handled as the CP of the Bangalore two great bomb blasts, which took place in those days in 2013. And he has handled very high profile cases when he was the Home Commissioner of the government of Karnataka. And he has cleared, believe it or not, my dear friends, 30,000 files, 30,000 pending files from Vidhan Sabha, third floor, as the Home Commissioner. And that's a fantastic, and all these things happening within 1 year,
Shama sir,
and his brain.
Shama sir, can we have a talk with Avradkar sir? Can you converse with him and let's listen from him, because I know his time is very precious. Can you ask him some questions? Let us listen to him.
Okay, sir. Now let me ask you a straight question, which I just left out. You also you're the brainchild for forming two great institutes or great institutions for government of Karnataka. That is Karnataka State Disaster Management Institute and Karnataka State Industrial Security Course. Can you just brief about that? About your emotional things. How did it really happen, sir?
So, yes, good afternoon, everybody. I thank Sham for the encomium showered upon me, which I honestly do not know whether I deserve it or not, because he has praised me so much that expectations will be raised to very, very high level. But
you deserve more, sir. You deserve more. We have told very less.
Yeah. Thank you. See, this is when I was the Home Secretary. We had some usual routine meetings with the Government of India on many occasions, and most of the times it used to be a video meeting with the Cabinet Secretary about the routine issues, particularly about the disaster management and the industrial securities, etc. And there was a huge demand for security from many establishments like dams, powerhouses, even the private sector. If you recall, even today, Infosys and Wipro, they are given security by the Central Industrial Security Force, because at that time, the Karnataka had seen few instances, and Bangalore also, few instances of the terrorism. So during those meetings, there was a proposal, and also in 2011 or 12, there were floods in North Karnataka. So our team had done, our Karnataka state team had done exceedingly well in containing and rescuing the people, both all entire team. I won't say the police department per se. So during those discussions, it was said that CISF is there, Central Industrial Security Force, for these establishment security and all. And suddenly I proposed in the meeting with the Chief Secretary and the Cabinet Secretary that we will have our own Karnataka State Industrial Security Force on the lines of Central Industrial Security Force. We will need hardly 2 or 3 battalions. That is, one battalion is approximately 1,000. It is 3,000 people. If we have, then the pressure on Central Industrial Security Force would be less, reduced. Then all of them accepted it in principle, because I had suggested it at the correct moment, and after seeing their expressions, I felt that this is the right time to hit. Therefore, I said, I will propose this. It was there in my mind, but that I was waiting for the time. Secondly, when there was lot of appreciation in another meeting for the fantastic work done by the Karnataka state officers in rescuing the flood victims and also doing great job, then I thought that it is again a right time, and I said, on the lines of National State Disaster Force, Disaster and Rescue Force, NDRF, why we can also have another force known as State Disaster Relief Force, SDRF. And that was also accepted immediately. And that is how the birth of these two forces, two units took place. And today they are doing yeoman service in the Karnataka state. That's all. It was an opportunity which I grabbed.
Sir, thank you so much. Sir, you were also awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award by IHRD. Mr. Siraj is also one of the participants here. Sir, can you just brief about the emotional pressure that you went across recruiting 40,000 police personnel in a span of just 3 years? And just how was your emotions? At that time, you were also running very tough with the family life as well. So can you just brief something upon that as well, sir?
Very difficult to put it in the perspective of emotional intelligence or emotional things, because I'm not a professional managerial graduate, or I'm not having any having any specific knowledge about emotional intelligence. Whatever I have is only through experience. One thing I can tell you is general perception is recruitment in the government service is impossible without any exterior forces, etc., etc. But my predecessor in the recruitment of the police department had set a very high standard, high benchmark, and it was my duty. Emotionally, I felt the stress that I have to maintain that standard. That itself gave me motivation. I can confess about it. I said, I can't go below this. If at all I have to go above this standard, that benchmark. So that is how we started. And transparency was the key for maintaining that high standard. So I started giving lot of importance to transparency in my actions and being humane to the people. Like suppose in police, we have physical standards test. The candidates are called for physical tests. Some of them used to come and say that they have this problem, that problem. And most of the times, for the convenience of the senior police officers, it used to be held in Bangalore. But during interviews, I found that some of the candidates who were coming from remote areas like Hubli, Dharwad, Gadag, Gulbarga, Bidar, or even Mangalore, Udupi, etc., they're coming from very, very low strata of the society. They had never seen Bangalore. And I asked them, where are you staying? They said, we are not staying anywhere, sir, because we can't afford. We are staying in the bus. We freshened up in the bus stand, and now in the evening again we will go. I felt that it is too much on the part of the government and me to call them to Bangalore for this physical standards test. And even some of the officers working in the armed police who were conducting this physical test, they used to tell me, sir, bahala badavaru idare. I'm sorry, I'm using it Kannada. Bahala badavaru idare. They stay in the ground, they sleep in the ground. In the morning, they ask for some facility, and it is extremely bad. Even the lower level staff in the police department, constables, sub-inspectors, inspectors, they used to tell, sir, we should make some arrangements for their stay in this ground. And I felt it was very, very bad on our part. So what I did, I decentralized it. I started it in regional centers like Gulbarga, Bangalore, Belgaum, Hubli, sometimes in districts also, depending on the number of candidates. Every district used to have that physical standards test. That gave lot of speed to my process, and also it was a win-win situation for the stakeholders because the candidates were happy. They don't have to come all the way to Bangalore. That was number one. Number two, I had given lot of freedom to the inspector generals or deputy inspector generals who were the chairman of this physical standards committee, or the superintendent of police of the district. He was the chairman of the constables recruitment. I gave them lot of freedom and I told them, I have full faith in you and I expect innovations. I expect no complaints from anyone. I want you to be humane, but at the same time, stick to the rules. Don't deviate. That's all. Sometimes some women used to come, some girls, saying that their parents won't allow them to travel to Bangalore alone. So they can't afford the ticket of two people. See, this is the situation, real situation of our society. Let us be clear about it. So these things I used to tell my officers also. And so that, because I believe that if I make them to realize, then they will own up the process. I believe that owning up the process will boost the efficiency and it will make them to put up their best in discharging their duties. That is where I did my decentralization, and I started using technology. Everything was available to me on the click of the button. I didn't do anything. I just hired some good professionals, technology professionals, and used that technology and started doing the things. Everything was seen on my computer. Third thing, Mr. Shyam Sundar mentioned that how did I overcome this emotional stress? People used to come and ask me, many politicians, everybody, I used to tell that there is nothing in this. If the boy or the girl is good, he will be selected. Don't do anything. And before the interview, before that, I used to send emails and the SMS messages and also address the boys or the girls, candidates rather, saying that they have come to this level on their own merit. They don't owe anything to anybody, no recommendations, no money power. Everything is because of their own efforts. They have done extremely well. Therefore, they are in this. And that gave them confidence, that boosted their self-confidence, and it gave credibility to the system. It institutionalized the process. It was mainly the communication and transparency in my handling the things. Politicians also started realizing that this man he talks nicely, but he won't budge. He won't deviate from the work. And I'll tell you, this is a trade secret. Please don't share it with anyone. If a candidate by chance is selected and some politician had told about it, I used to tell, I call it as management by guilt. I have read a book by the same topic, same title, Management by Guilt. I used to tell that politician that your candidate is selected. So he used to feel, oh, my recommendation has worked, but actually it didn't work. But I thought, let me take the credit if that man is happy. So I used to make him feel guilty. That is what I read in that book, Management by Guilt. So that was one thing. And third thing is, many politicians, they used to say, we know that you will not do anything beyond a point. If there is any scope, or if somebody from the candidate side comes and tells you that whether so and so politician had called, you say yes. But I never told this yes to anyone, and because I had to establish the credibility of the institution. About my personal life, yes, personal life, I had some tensions, but those are part of the game, part of the life. Tensions would be there, but during that period, I had my subordinate officers, I won't say subordinate, colleague officers, they gave me lot of support. They took lot of load upon themselves. And many times I have signed on blank papers without verifying, and they have never ditched me. They have never done anything which was against the rules or which was against the principles. So it was mainly making the officer feel important and making him to realize that what he is making someone's life. That's all. Thank you.
Sir, let me come to, of course, a lot of other things, but let me come to another very important thing. The rehabilitation of prostitutes, both in Mandya district and as well as in the Raichur. How exactly, you were with full of powers, and what was their living conditions? And all were young girls and coming from a very lower strata of society. So how did you really deal with their emotions and your power and those, sorry to, anyway, because I just thought this is part of the emotional society. So can you just brief something upon that, sir?
See, I was undergoing practical training in Raichur district. I was a probationer and I was attached to the DYSP of the Raichur headquarters. And the superintendent of police was an extremely strict officer, extremely hardworking, and expecting us to work very hard. At the same time, very, very professional officer. So what he was doing, he was telling that you have to book some cases against the SIT. At that time, it was Suppression of Immoral Traffic Act. Now it is PITA, Prevention of Immoral Traffic Act. And because that should stop this flesh trade. That was his idea. And 2-3 times that I, along with the DYSP, I went to the Somarpet police station, where this area was known for prostitution. And the joke in the Raichur town was that if you go to any house in that area, Mangalwarpet and other area, you will find the father and son exchanging their shoes or chappals outside. So, so much of rampant thing was there. And when I went to the police station, I told the sub-inspector and the old head constables and the DYSP that we will go and raid the dens. They said, no sir, we won't go. Then the one head constable went. He brought about 15 to 20 people, 20 young girls. They booked the case. Next day they were produced in the court. And again, after 1 week, I see the same faces, but the names are changed. In the previous case, the name, suppose if it is Kallamma, in the next case it is Yellamma. Then third or fourth time I sat there when they were brought to the police station. I asked them, most of them were from migrants from the neighboring Andhra Pradesh. I asked their economic conditions. Most of them had poor financial background. They had a lot of problems, father suffering from cancer, mother suffering, husband beating, wife battering, all sorts of things were happening. And I asked them, why you come here when we call? They said, what to do, sir? We have to survive in this. And then one lady told me one very that should stir your emotions, if you are, human emotions. She said, sir, the moment you call us, daily we satisfy at least 3 to 4 clients, but on the day when police calls us, next 2-3 days, we will have to we have to satisfy at least 3 to 4 more clients. I asked why. We have to pay the fine in the court. At that time, it was 100 rupees, 150 rupees, 200 rupees. And that was pathetic. That was really, that moved me very much. I went to the superintendent of police and told, sir, we will stop these raids. If at all we want to stop this prostitution flesh trade, then we should book the people who indulge in this. Then he simply laughed and said, you are a young man, you don't know the practicalities. Nobody will come forward to give evidence against those people. But I told him, sir, whatever you may say, I won't participate in these things, because I am, rather than stopping this, I'm perpetuating it. I'm forcing them to go ahead. Then he said, how do you say that? I gave him the logic behind my argument, and he was also convinced. From that day, it was reduced. It was stopped almost. Even during the inspection by the police chief of the state, he asked, in this month, there are more number of cases under SIT. Why not on this? Then he said, sir, Auradkar has done a study, and this is the thing. Even DG and IGP was satisfied about it, and he sent a proposal to the government, central government, and I won't say that was the reason, but it was one of the reasons that Section 8, making the victim, treating the lady who does this as treating her as a victim. That was the change which was brought, and the suppression, instead of suppression, it was renamed as prevention. That was one thing. But when I was in Mandya, I was new, and that time TADA was the act which was very, very in the news, very much in the news. It was during 1992-93. I went there in 1992 December. In January, February, one of the sub-inspector and DYSP who came to me and said, sir, you are fresh, you are new, this is your first district. We are going to do something. We will say that this SP is very strict. He won't leave anybody, etc., etc. I said, okay, whatever you want to do, but do it legally and don't go beyond a point in harassing the people. I mean, legal harassment also. They said, no, sir, we will, whatever we do, we will talk to you. Then there was an area known as PP Nagar in Mandya, which was right in on the highway. If we are going from Bangalore to Mysore, near, once you cross a garden, a park, it is known as Raita Park. Just after that, there was a site 100 by 150 or 150 by 150, and 3-4 sites. These were all belonging to the institutions and the Municipal Council of Mandya, but illegally occupied as a slum. It was known as PP Nagar, but it was most of them were indulging in flesh trade, and all the criminals of the area, surrounding area, they used to be visiting that place. It was notorious. So these, my DYSP, inspector, sub-inspector, and some constables, all of them went there. They did some counseling. They played to the emotions of the people and said that this is, hey, he is a new man. He will bring all the TADA against you. TADA was a draconian law against the terrorists. And then he said, what shall we do? Most of them, 103 families were there. 100 families were convinced that they will be given a house constructed by Karnataka Slum Clearance Board in Mandya itself, because they were vacant. And we convinced them. One fine day, we facilitated transportation of goods, etc. And we took them. Then 3-4 people came and said, we have a Devi temple there. We don't want that to be demolished. I said, no, we will not demolish it. I gave them that confidence, and we demolished those temporary huts, slums, and rehabilitated them with the help of the Deputy Commissioner and the Karnataka Slum Clearance Board officers, and allotted them the houses officially, legally. At least 2 families, they resisted because they were under the influence of some vested interest, but we were able to manage them, and forcibly we shifted them. That was those 3 families were the only families whom we had shifted forcibly. And that is how that land was completely reclaimed, and it was handed over to municipal corporation and other institutions whom it rightfully belonged. But at the same time, I'm having a lot of satisfaction that I was able to rehabilitate those 103 families to a Pakka house constructed by the Karnataka Slum Clearance Board. I used the government scheme of rehabilitating slum dwellers to some pakka houses. And at the same time, I hope that I was able to do something good for those families. Thank you.
So this could be the last but one. Sorry to take you much of your time. Can you just mention something about the emotions of the very top politicians whom you really dealt with, maybe Deve Gowda or say Dharam Singh or something like that? Especially, how are you really able to deal with such top politicians, one or two examples here and there with their emotions, and how are you really feeling at the time?
See, let me tell you, politicians per se have tremendous common sense. Because you and I meet only the educated people, but they meet all types of people, all strata of the society, and they meet every strata of the society. I'll say that because they are exposed to this varied perspective, they have tremendous grasping power, they have tremendous common sense, and their decision-making power is extremely sharp. It is not that they are what general perception is. Because, see, they meet the top CEO of a company, at the same time, they meet a rowdy in the street. But they know how to deal with all these people. They are, I'm one person who, I would say, our democracy is really vibrant that way. And they are definitely having a lot of common sense. So,
one last question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know you need to go in for an interview.
No. Yeah.
And you have left in between and you have come. Before I could ask my very last question, Mr. Avradkar is very ably supported by Pratima Avradkar and his daughter, who is Anaga, who is an MD, and son Aditya, who is in US. Sir, one last question is, as chairman and managing director of Karnataka State Housing, when you were inaugurating the houses for the policemen, what were their emotions, sir, basically? Because for them, being in a government house is a great thing for them. And you built so many mansions for them, which is still going on. And Annapurna is also a witness to that. So okay, just one example of emotional being of those employees, sir.
One thing, if you have time, I'll take hardly 2-3 minutes. Along with Managing Director, Police Housing Corporation, I will add one more thing of Gadag, where I was SP. It was a new district in Gadag. When I was posted, I was the first SP of the district. And there were no houses to say. My own luggage was in the inspection bungalow for 3 days. And after 6 days, I got my house because it was a rented house. So that is how there was a lot of problem. One fine day, some 2-3 employees came to me and they said, of my office, they came and said, sir, there is some land, but what you have to do is, we want to buy it and make sites for our people, but we need your help, we need your guidance, because you will be always talking to Deputy Commissioner. It has to be converted into non-agriculture land. Agriculture land, it is on the outskirts of Gadag, and registration, other bank loans, etc., you will have all that formalities. You will, we need your help. It was a sort of risk for me because it was not a registered society. It was unofficial society of aspirants or the prospective buyers of the site. I called for the willingness of the people. We opened a joint account in my name, and also we appointed one treasurer. We made them on president and secretary office bearers, opened an account, and every transaction was through the check. At that time, there was no RTGS or anything. So this was about 1998-99. After that, we negotiated with the landowner and told him that if he had to go on his own, he has to spend a lot of money, but for converting into non-agriculture and all, and it would take a lot of time. So that is how the prices were negotiated. I went to Deputy Commissioner and told him this, and he was very, very gracious enough and large-hearted, said, this is an excellent move, we will go ahead, we will do it. He also was involved in the whole thing, and I kept my bosses informed orally, and also subsequently I sent a report because I have to safeguard myself also. So after that, we got the land. I called the bank managers and told them that I will facilitate monthly deduction of EMI from the salary. You please sanction the loans for these policemen, and all of them agreed. That is how, and we called the local Swamiji of Gadag and made him to take out chits lottery, which site to be allotted to whom. Let there be transparency, no favoritism. So that is how the sites were allotted, and everyone made payment, and how site was registered on individual's name. That is how they got the sites, and that gave me tremendous satisfaction that about 450 people have got their own shelter, the land in a new place like Gadag. That was one satisfaction. Secondly, in Police Housing Corporation, I won't say that I was responsible for everything. It was the Police Graha scheme of the government of Karnataka, which I gave a boost by involving myself, taking interest in expediting the construction, and I encouraged 1 or 2 builders to adopt new technology of precast construction. Therefore, it was completed before time. Normal time is 18 months, but it was completed within 8 months, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year, and that is how there was a lot of cost saving because of the time lag was reduced, and immediately we were handed it over to the Commissioner of Police Bangalore and the superintendents of police of the different districts. That is how it gave me a lot of satisfaction that I felt emotionally very, very happy. I have been able to do something to the department, to the corporation, and that is how I was, it was a feeling of contentment, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And that Gadag is still called as the Raghavendra Nagar. That's what people say. It is named after you. Yes, sir. With this, I'm just ending my talk. And it was a huge.
Thank you, Shama sir. Thank you, Shama sir. Thank you, Raghavendra sir. And thank you, Raghavendra sir. We were, I and Shama at this point of last year, we were a witness for the Housing Corporation project. We went there, and all the policemen were showcasing lot of gratitude towards you, because they were telling, because of sir, we are going to get a home to stay, a very decent home. We have visited those flats. Those flats are on par with any of the builders, top class builders, top class facilities, infrastructure, security, everything was over there. And I thank you for giving us that opportunity to work with you in the last year. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be collaborating with you and learning from you also.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Can we have a token of appreciation soon, because sir is having a tight schedule which is going. Sir, a small token of appreciation from Emotionalytics and MEQ Academy, who have collaborated to put this BEI summit together in 2020, for sharing your insights in this summit. Thank you so much. We have also planted a tree. Thank you, Shama sir, my mentor, my big brother. Thank you, Aradkar sir. We have planted in our own state, Karnataka, Namma Janmabhumidalli, one vriksha hakidvi ivattu nim hesralli. Thank you so much. And this has been sponsored by our sponsoring partner, GAPS Digital Solutions. We will send you the certificate. You can track your tree. Thank you. I think Shama sir's tree. Okay, we will show it. Okay, Shama sir, we have planted for you also in Karnataka only. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, both of you. Lots of that.
Thank you. I take leave.
Thank you.